Hi, welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks, and today we are going to talk about the responsive layout controls in Process Director. I have to be honest with you, this is not my favorite webinar topic. We don't talk about it too much, primarily because it's complicated and because it is something that is going to appeal to probably a minority of customers, but those who can use it and who can design forms with it often find that it provides very attractive, very functional forms with bells and whistles that aren't available in the normal Process Director Forms user interface. So let's start off by just taking a look at a form that uses these controls. If I can figure out how to share my screen, I will show it to you. This is a form that was developed using the responsive layout controls. I will use the term developed very liberally here because basically I slapped a whole bunch of different stuff onto this page. It's quite colorful and even attractive, I guess, in a certain sort of way with the nice color combinations that are used here. But these color combinations are important and they give you a visual clue of what it is that you're looking at. Now, whenever I run this form and my form screen pops open here, we'll walk through a couple of the little things that I have added onto this form. So up here at the top, these are just normal controls. Now, one of the things that the responsive layout controls do is they implement a CSS framework called Bootstrap, and Bootstrap provides styling for all of your form elements. Now, there are certain things that are controlled at the form level above the design level. For example, the default font that you use. On this system, I believe I have my default font set for Noto Sans as the primary default font. And it won't mess with things like that. But your form controls and their styling and the look and feel that they have, it does control from Bootstrap because Bootstrap is a CSS framework and it applies specific styling to your controls. For example, if we look up here at the top, and we'll get into the details of what all of this stuff is here in a minute. If we look up here at the top and we look at these form fields, I just want you to notice these form fields automatically fill this entire orangey tan area here for it's a control called the form group that provides the visual layout. And so automatically these controls are just going to fill the space available for them. This is just styling applied by Bootstrap. And if we make our form smaller, you'll see that my controls continue to get smaller as my form gets smaller and everything kind of rearranges. So let's go down here and take a look at these two areas here. Now notice, normally these two items here are side by side, but whenever the screen is narrowed, they appear on top of each other. But as I widen my screen out, you can see the layout changes. So Bootstrap has some additional page layout HTML that also makes your form more responsive than the normal stuff that we do in Process Director for tables. This doesn't use tables in the same way that you do with Process Director. This uses what are called div tags or division tags in HTML to create the layout. Now, technically, this is the way you're supposed to lay out pages. In fact, it has been for quite a while. And so Bootstrap implements this div style layout, and it, other than the use of arrays specifically, it liberates you from the need to use tables. And because it does, we can allow Bootstrap to control how things look. There are several different types of controls that come with Bootstrap. I'm not sure, based on time, how in depth we'll be able to get into these, but up here, this is a process director section control, and this is the content of the section control. As you can see, I just do a whole bunch of text in here, and like you're probably used to, these section controls expand and collapse. Bootstrap has its own section controls. Here's section 1 and section 2, and they are collapsible as well. In fact, this entire section area here is accordioned off. Similarly, they have tabs. We'll get to those in a second. And here's some other accordion tabs as well that you can build into the form, and they expand and contract too, although by default they are expanded. There are tab controls. So here is tab 1. It contains a couple of form fields. Tab 2 and tab 3 simply contains some text content, just to make my job easier in throwing one of these forms together. This section below that, right here, that is a card. And the card is kind of like a section control, but it's a section control that has an image that you can configure. As you can see here, I've configured the image with our little BPLogix logo mark. It has a title, so that you can just put in a text title, and then it has the area, the card body, where you can place various controls. And then down here at the bottom, and let's take a look at what I've done here. As we scroll all the way to the bottom, I've just taken a table and placed it in here so that I can create an array. And right now, all we can see is add row, although we do see my two array column. Well, let's pull the form over here. We can see our two array column controls, field 1 and field 2, and then I can simply add my array rows to the form as needed to create my array. And then, of course, at the very bottom, I have my normal action buttons that appear at the bottom of the form. The action buttons are a special thing inside Bootstrap. Normally, on a form, you might not put in an action button controls like I have down here. You might not throw it in at all, just allow a process director to slap a action button down at the bottom of the form automatically. You have to be much more intentional whenever you're using the responsive layout controls. You do need to specifically place a action buttons control where you want that control to appear. Otherwise, the display might get a little bit wonky because of the nature of how Bootstrap works. Speaking of how Bootstrap works, let's get into it and let's start explaining what all of this stuff is, and indeed what Bootstrap is itself. Bootstrap is, as I said, a CSS layout framework. If you want to find, and I should have probably searched for Bootstrap prior to us coming here, but it's getbootstrap.com. And getbootstrap.com actually has documentation that tells you all of the different things that are available in Bootstrap. Now, Bootstrap is far more complex and far more feature-rich than what we have implemented. But we have implemented, I believe, enough of the Bootstrap framework to be very useful to you. Everything in Bootstrap has to work inside what is called a container. And that container is where all of your form information has to go. There are two types of containers in Bootstrap. There is, first of all, let's talk about how we get to the responsive layout controls before we get into the details of Bootstrap. You probably do not see this menu in your online form designer. And the reason that you probably do not is because it requires a specific system variable to activate. And that specific system variable is called F include bootstrap. And so let me search for that too. It is one of the user interface custom variables. So by default, include bootstrap is set to false. If you want to use bootstrap, then you need to set this custom variable to true in your set system vars subroutine of your custom vars file. If you're a cloud customer and you want to play with this and you don't have it set on your system, you can certainly submit a tech support ticket to say, throw in the include bootstrap custom var so that we have access to the responsive layout controls, and we'll do that for you. There are some caveats that I'd need to throw out whenever you turn bootstrap on. It throws in an entirely new set of CSS files, styling files on your machine, and it does control how forms look. If you have your own custom style sheet set up, you are going to want to do a fair amount of testing to be sure that your custom styles do not interfere with any of the Bootstrap styles. Because Bootstrap does have a pretty comprehensive set of styles, and if there are style conflicts with what you have in your style sheet, I'm not entirely sure which of those styles would win. And so you would need to actually do a fair amount of analysis, probably on your dev system first, to be sure that it works the way that you want it to work. So what the responsive layout controls do is they implement some of the major layout features of Bootstrap so that you can implement them in forms. I should say that on the version that I'm using here, which is 6.1.506, it's missing at least one of the elements that we have added in for Bootstrap. There is a nav bar element, but we don't have the nav item element. I would argue that you probably shouldn't use the nav bar or nav item element, but that's a design and preference argument. That is not an official recommendation from Process Director. The newest version of Process Director, or the next version of Process Director that we release, will, in fact, if I go to documentation, which is running 6.1.200-ish or something around there. Let me fill that in from LastPass. And I actually went in and replicated this yesterday so that we could see the difference. And so if we go to our responsive layout 2 form here, and we look at the responsive layout controls, you'll see that there is a nav bar and a nav item control. I'm not going to talk about them today. And the reason I'm not going to talk about them is that to make this work properly with the nav item, you would have to go into the HTML source. And I just don't want to get into the difficulties of trying to directly edit the source for a Process Director form. So with that caveat, we will go back to training and we'll use these existing responsive layout controls. So as I started to say, the fundamental control that enables Bootstrap is your container control. That is the outer control that must contain your entire form. Everything that you place into the form must reside inside the container control. Now, there are 2 container controls, one of which I like and one of which I really hate. The container control is the standard container control. We will look at the container fluid in just a minute. We'll show you the differences between the two. Once the container control is on the form, you now have to be very, very sure of where your cursor appears. It's right here at the moment inside the container control, flashing. That is where your next control will be placed. It's really a good idea whenever you're trying to use the responsive layout controls that you kind of take a piece of scratch paper or PowerPoint or Visio or Inkscape or whatever it is that you like to use to doodle stuff and to figure out what the layout of your form is going to be before you start. If you are not a pro at HTML, it's going to be really hard to edit your form if you make a mistake. One of the drawbacks of the responsive layout controls is that you need to know how Bootstrap works, and you need to know how HTML works, and you need to be familiar with how HTML works behind the scenes in a process director form, and you need to know kind of what these classes are and how to manipulate them. We're going to do as little of that as possible today, but this requires way more knowledge than just building a standard process director form. It does require some expertise in Bootstrap and HTML to work. And if you make a mistake when you're placing your items inside the form, you may have to go to the source tab and delete things directly from the source tab to correct your mistakes. The way Bootstrap is set up is you have your container, and then all of your content goes in what is called a row, or if you're going to be using form controls, a form row container. So when we think of building stuff with div tags rather than tables, the concept is still similar. As a table, you have rows, and in each row, you have a certain number of cells. Well, the same sort of thing applies when you're building with div tags. And so we can consider the container as kind of like our big table, the outer part of the table. And our rows or form rows are the row elements of the table. So once I've got my container, I am going to need to go to responsive layout and start adding either rows or form rows. Rows are for normal content that is not going to contain form fields. That in most cases will not be what you're going to be doing. In most cases, because you're building a form, unless you just have like a text section, like a paragraph of text, you will not use the row and column controls. Instead, you'll use the form row and the form group controls. But to start off with, we are going to use the row and the column controls. So I'm going to insert a row control. So now I have the first row of my table. It's not really a table, but it's table-like. And inside each row, I can have anywhere from 1 to 12 columns inside the row. 12 is the maximum number of columns that you can have in Bootstrap. I can't imagine why you would really need more than 12 columns. But we are going to go ahead and add a couple of columns here, and then we're just going to throw some text in those columns for now. So we'll go back to responsive layout. Let's be sure that my cursor is now flashing inside the row. And then I'll go to responsive layout, and I'll just drop in a column. And then I'll go to responsive layout and drop in another column. And then I'll go to responsive layout and drop in a third column. So I can have 3 columns here, and I will just drop some text into each one of these columns just to fill them out with something And there we go. That's fine. So this is the basic format that we want. We want to have a container, a row or a form row, and then a column or a form group, which we'll talk about in a second. But these are the three basic elements of a Bootstrap layout. Now, remember I said there were two types of container controls, right? There's the container and the container fluid. So right now we're using the normal container control. What the normal container control does is it presents your page in a fixed width. Now, see, this is what I was talking about with those button controls. So let me go ahead and let me add an extra row in here so that we can add actions and button area. Now I've got a button area control. Now let's run our form so that my buttons appear where they're supposed to appear, not placed behind the container. The button needs to be inside the Bootstrap container. Okay, great. So now we have our controls. Now, the thing about or not our controls, but our layout here. Now, the thing about the container control is that it is fixed width. And so as I make my form smaller, it has a number of breakpoints to resize all of the elements inside the container. So as I get close, you can just see it just keeps making things smaller and smaller and smaller until, and I want you to notice, this third column is now going to appear way down here. Now, this is narrower than any phone screen, but I can make it really, really narrow, and I can make all three of my rows appear as a single column. Now, this is in text, and it's not spaced well, and that's just it'll work a little differently with forms, but that's how the container control works. Unfortunately, what I have to do now is get rid of all of this. Actually, I got to get rid of all of it. And to do that, I'm going to go into source control and let me get rid of, no, I need to get rid of it all. So let's get rid of it all. Let's go back to our page and we're going to start from scratch. Now we're going to throw in the container fluid. And I'm going to go in and do the same sort of thing. I'm just going to go to add a row, and then inside the row, I will just add 1, 2. Oh, I added a row. Sorry. Column. And, I really should have. Oh my goodness, I have done something in the background. I'm not sure what. I apparently have opened up Access inadvertently. Sorry about that. This is also opened up too. I apparently opened up Excel inadvertently too. I should probably pick a certain number of keys and just use those. Okay, so now I've redone it, but this time I've done it with container fluid. And with container fluid, it's going to be a little bit different because container fluid is a fluid kind of, it's almost 100% of the screen. And if my screen gets bigger, all of my columns just keep getting bigger and bigger too. And notice that it constantly resizes to full screen no matter what I do. This sounds fun until you actually use it. It's actually quite irksome when you use it. Of course, at smaller sizes, it does the same thing. Obviously, there's no screen that's going to be that narrow, so I think that's probably close to phone-like, although I suspect that's more like what it would look like on a phone. But in any event, it's a constantly resizing outer container. I'm not a big fan of that. Um, because especially whenever you're using a form and somebody opens it up on a big monitor, things get really wide. And, ultimately, if you have a big monitor, you end up with this huge amount of space between your form controls. It's problematic from a design point of view. I don't like the container fluid. I'll just tell you that. I would personally never use it, but it might have its purpose. That's really up to you. Once again, that's kind of a design preference. And once again, I'm going to delete everything because we have to start over one more time. So we're going to go back and throw the container back on. And we're going to presume that we're going to use the container. The reason I like the container is because it is a fixed width container. I can at least design my form to look good inside the width constraints of this container and know that I only have to worry about the form refactoring for smaller screen sizes, but that's something I always have to worry about. I don't have to worry about what happens if somebody has a 32-inch monitor and they open the form and it takes up, the full width of their monitor. And here's kind of why that's important. If I was to go to, let's see, let me go to just any current running version. Documentation is set up to do something a little bit different that we're working on. But let me go to demo.bplogix.net and I'll just log in as BPL support here. And we'll go to demo partition, work in progress. And Dale, I'm sure I have a form in here somewhere that I've built at some point since 2014. All right, so let's run this form. Notice that you're seeing all white on your screen. That's because I am only sharing a portion of my big 30, what is it, 32, 36-inch monitor. So this form goes, my monitor is about twice as big as what you're currently seeing on your screen. And this form fills the entire width of my monitor. That is the default form size. Now I have on the training server altered that behavior. So on the training server, when I open up a form here, it's going to open up in a size that is, that I have configured specifically to display for webinars. So I've controlled the size of this form via my custom vars file. So I know how big the form is going to be on open. By default in Process Director, it wants to fill your entire screen when you open a pop-up form. And the pop-up forms are going away if you want them to go away. And we'll have to discuss something different whenever you get your hands on that functionality and start using it for those of you who do. I want to control how big my form is when it opens. So I don't want Process Director to do what we just saw, have the default of opening it and filling the entire screen width of my screen, because I have this huge monitor sitting here. I don't want this full screen filled. So I controlled my form size, and especially whenever we're talking about a bootstrap form, that's why I think the container works better in the context of controlling what size the form is going to be. I do need to know, I think as a practical matter, how wide my form is going to be on initial display. And so I like the container control because it at least allows me to design for this specific width in Process Director. So now we can start building an actual Process Director form, because we do need to start using the form row and form group controls to start building our control. Now, if I wanted to put a header on this form, which I do, so I will go ahead and in responsive layout, I will add a row. And then in that row, I'm just going to add a single column. So I've got to have these three fields or these three elements for everything that I put in. I'm either going to need a row and a column, or I'm going to need, if I'm using form controls, a form row and form group, which we'll talk about next after I put in my form title. And I will actually, form title, and I will go ahead and I will set that to heading 1. So now I have a form title. Now let's go to the second row of my form. Now this is where these little insert paragraph here things come in very, very handy, because I am going to need to insert a blank paragraph to expand my container control. And as you can see, my cursor is now flashing down here in the gray area. I'm going to throw in another row, but I'm going to want to use form controls here. And we're going to start off simple, and then later on we'll play around with cards and stuff like that. Let's get a working form built first. So the next thing I'm going to do on my responsive layout, I'm going to need another row, but I'm going to be using form controls. So now I need to use a form row container. And then inside that form row container, I'm going to need to put as many form groups as I need to throw controls in here. Generally, you can get about 4 in here if you want to have controls of a regular size. Obviously, if you need a large control, you can't have as many form groups in there. Form groups are for form rows, the same thing as a column is for a container. And did I put a I may have messed up something here, so please forgive me. I've got my row. Did I throw a column in there? BP in a column, BP in, okay, yes. I did have my column in there. Okay. Form title. All right, I'm not sure why my form or my column control wasn't showing up there. See, this is where it gets super, super tricky. Okay, container, P class BP editor, column BP editor. Oh, my row is outside my column. It's all messed up. You know what? Let's go back and let's restart. This is why these controls are a little tedious to use. So we're going to start again. We're going to go with container. Check my cursor's in the right place. We're going to add a row. Okay, now my row's in the right place. Now we're going to add a column. And now I'm in my column. And I think I know what blew it up. It was the H1 control. I bet. Okay, so it's there. It'll work. It it just added my H1 to the row control or the column control. So now my H1 is the column control, but it is the column. I probably should have looked at this before I erased everything. That's why it looks the way it does. Okay, fine. So now let's go back. Let's add my row. And this time we'll go ahead and we'll add a form row. And now notice my cursor is now below my form row. I don't want it there. We have to walk through this really carefully when we're building. So we're going to go here to form row so that inside my form row, I can add some form groups. So let's just go ahead and add 1, 2, 3, and can I squeeze 4 in there? I think I can. 4. So now I have 4 form groups. I don't know if you noticed earlier, but whenever we were using rows and columns, the rows and columns, the columns themselves, they butt right up next to each other. There's no space between them. So there's space inside of each column, some padding, but it's like the column control is like having a table cell where the border is set to 0. Everything is just right next to each other. Form groups are a little different. They are still columns. However, there is some built-in spacing in the form group. And you can see the little green bars between each form group that let you know that there's been some extra spacing added in between the form controls. That is intentional because you don't want, whenever you have text in a column, you can generally format that so that it doesn't, so if you have 2 columns, the text doesn't just, run into each other. You don't want controls to do that at all. And the way that the form group works is to make the controls just a bit smaller and to give them some more padding between the form groups. For each form group, you're going to need to add 2. Now we can get to regular process director controls. Now we can get to form controls. I'm going to need 2. So the first thing I'm going to need is a label control. So I'm going to drop that in there, and we will just call this label 1. And we're not even going to change the name, but we are going to need to, as we always do for accessibility purposes, we are going to need to associate this with a control. So the next control that I create will most likely be input 2, but I am not going to get in the business of trying to figure out what the control automatic name is going to be. So I'm just going to call it input 1 here, and I'm just going to rename my input control that I am now going to place inside the container. So I'm going to move my cursor, and as you can see, when I move my cursor off of label 1, oh, that was my typo again. Label 1, and I'm just going to use the arrow key to move it off the control, the label control, and you can see that now my my cursor is blinking way over here, and that's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and drop in my input control, which I am going to call input 1 because that's what I associated label 1 with. And then all I have to do is just go ahead and repeat that. So we'll just add another label control, and we will have this associated with input 2. And then I will go right over here, add another input control, which I will name input 2. And we'll just do it. Well, since I put 4 controls on here, I guess we'll do it 2 more times. That'll be input 3. And input 3. And in our 4th form group, 1 last label control. And this will be input 4. Oops. Input 4. And input 4. So now let's run our form and see what we get. Well, there we go. There is our form. It is up. Well, the one thing that I keep forgetting, I am going to need to go in here and I'm going to hit an enter key. The reason I'm going to hit an enter key is I always need to have space to throw some stuff in. I'm going to be building ultimately some extra stuff below this first form row. So I'm going to I'm going to hit paragraph or hit return so that I go down to the next line and this is where I am going to drop my button area control so that it is the last control inside the container. I suppose if I were going to have uh, a routing slip, I would drop that below my button control. So where's the routing slip? So there we go. I mean, I don't think I need a routing slip because we're not really going to have a process to go to, and it's not even going to show up on the form. This is what I would do. I'll keep the routing slip here, even though we're not going to see it because there's no process that's running, so there isn't going to be any routing. But there we go. There's my form, and you'll see the extra space here. That's intentional. I left that extra space in there for a reason because I need to add more controls. And on the form itself, there we go. There's our form. I've got my four controls that I can fill out, and then I can submit the form. And of course, as we saw earlier, the form will resize and will resize the controls and everything. Everything gets resized until I reach the point where it automatically refactors to show a single row for each one of the div tags. So this is all handled directly by Bootstrap. I don't have to go in and worry about that or make any changes to it. So that is a basic form, and I can just keep doing this at this point now. If I want to keep adding form fields, all I have to do is keep adding form rows and form groups. Now, of course, that is not the end all and be all, just a title and form controls. We need to be able to throw our form into different sections. We can certainly do that because section controls, whether I use the BP Logic section control, which at least we'll start off doing, they will work fine inside the container. What I would probably do, and there's a couple of different ways of doing this, and some of them will probably work fine, and some of them are probably simpler than what I'm going to do. But just thinking about it, the way that I would do this, most likely, would be to go to responsive layout and add a row. And then inside that row, I would add a single, am I inside the row? Yeah, just want to be sure where my cursor is. Inside that row, I'm going to want to add a single column. And now that I'm inside that column, I will go ahead and I'll drop in a section control. And we'll just start off with the process director section control. Okay, so in my section control, obviously I would need to do whatever configuration, have to give it its name. And we'll give it some text here. And we'll say this is a PD section control. Now, inside my section control, if I'm going to want to throw in some controls here, what I would do at this point is drop in a form row. And then inside my form row, I can drop in a couple of form groups. And once again, I can add my, what am I looking for? Label. I can add my label and then add my, well, we'll just use input controls. We'll just keep things simple. This control is input 13. So we'll go back to our label. Come on, let me click the label. There we go. And we'll set that for our associated control ID. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Drop our label control in and drop in a text box that is input 15. And we'll come back up here to our label control and set that to input 15. And so now, did I close my form? It does appear that I did. So let's run the form again. I should probably keep that form open so that I can just refresh it instead of doing a save and run all the time. So there we go. There's my process director control as a section control. It is sitting inside its column, and then uh, inside that column, I've got the form group and the form row for my regular controls, and everything works. And hopefully my tab, well, that's a control, so I would tab to it. Okay, so my tab order works. Everything is fine. Now, that is the process director control. I might want to use a different control for that. And this is where it gets a little bit tedious. I'm going to have to manually add in a row there. I probably should add a couple of rows in here just for good measure to throw some other things in. So under responsive layout, I have the accordion and accordion controls and the tab and tab content controls. The accordion controls we can basically use like a section because, well, we'll look at the other form, we'll explain it, and then we'll throw them on here. Let's start off with the tab control, though. So let's throw in a tab control. So we'll ensure that we're right there. And I'm going to drop in another row. And then I'm going to drop in, we'll just do a full column there. So I'll drop in a column control. And then inside that column, I will drop a tab control. Okay, so I have a tab control. I have tab 2. So I can have multiple tabs here. I can also make additional tabs as well. I'm trying to remember how I did that. I think it's tab content that I want right there. That'll give me tab 3. So I've got tab 1, tab 2, and tab 3 content. Now, right now, this is set up into a couple of different div tags. I've got my nav item div tags. Now, these nav item div tags are basically they're basically formatted as a tab, so we can click them, tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. Each one of these tab content controls has the tab pane for that tab content control below it. Basically, they're all superimposed on top of each other. So when you use the tab controls in Process Director, it kind of looks a little ugly because you have to have the tab strip control, then you have to have the tab content start, and then you throw all of your content in there. Then you need a tab content end, and then below that you need another tab content. And so horizontally, it takes up a lot of space in the design. In Bootstrap, the way that Bootstrap works, it just kind of looks in the design view the same way it's going to look in the real world. So as I change tabs, you can see the only thing that changes is that number right there. It'll change from tab 1 to tab 2 to tab 3. So we should probably make some changes there on that tab. So I'll go into, oops, all right, don't want to do that. Let's go into the tab pane. Let's get rid of all of that content. And then I'm going to drop in a form row on that tab. And of course, inside that form row, I am going to drop a form group. In fact, let's go ahead and draw 2 of them in there. And then we can go ahead and draw our controls. Let us pretend that I am throwing label controls on here. And I'll just drop in the controls themselves in the interest of time. All right, well, there's tab 1, and then let's go to tab 2, and we'll get rid of this content here. And Once again, we'll drop in a form row, and on this one, let's just add one form group. And then we'll add our input control there, and then we'll go to tab 3. And we'll just repeat that same process. Form row, be sure our cursor is in the form row, and then let's add 1, 2, and 3 form groups into which we can drop our input controls. Actually, tab 2 should have had the 2 controls. Tab 1 should have had 1 control, and tab 3 should have had 3. That would have made it logical. So I kind of reversed that, but that's okay. We will save our form, and well, I might as well have hit save and close because I closed the form again. So there we go. There, here's my tab. So there's tab 1, which has 2 controls, and tab 2 that has 1 control, and then tab 3 that has 3 controls. Obviously, it would be better if I had labels in each one of these. I'm just not doing it in the interest of time because it's already 11 o'clock. So there is my tab control, and that works fine. Let's stop our designing for just a second. We have plenty of space down here, so we'll get back to it. Let's talk about what we've done so far. The way that it has to work in the responsive layout controls is that Process Director has to throw in a bunch of blank rows inside each one of these containers to give you room to put your cursor in and to add the child containers or the child controls that need to be placed in the container. This is going to make things a little ugly, and it's going to leave you with lots of extra vertical spacing. At some point, you're going to need to go back into your design view, and you're going to have to look for these extra rows. So right below my form title, I've got this extra space here. And on the form, which, man, I keep closing. That just must be some muscle memory I've got built in. On the form, I have kind of an unacceptable amount of space here. That one extra row right there takes up a lot of extra time, or a lot of extra space. I'm gonna need to not have that. So what I'm going to need to do is go here and highlight this and hit backspace. I'm going to need to backspace my way so that I get rid of those extra rows. I've got an extra row here on my row control, which I really do need to get rid of. And is it here? Nope. Yep, there's that one. We got to get rid of that. And down here, there's an extra space. I'm going to want to get rid of that. Because what we want to do here, let's save our container and let's see how much vertical space we saved when we reload or refresh our form. Okay, there we go. Much better, much more compact. I've gotten rid of those extra spaces. In fact, in some places, I might want those extra spaces, like right here with these tab controls. I'm not super happy at how the tab controls work because there is no spacing for the tab controls. So under a tab control, you probably would want to have an extra row. Now we're kind of getting into the particulars of design. But what I am going to want to do eventually, and it may be the last thing that you do, is I'm gonna want to get rid of those extra lines. Now, note that we have this insert paragraph here thing that pops up to give us extra lines whenever we need them. So if I, for example, needed an extra line here, well, that would give me an extra line in the column. That's probably not where I want it. I want my extra line. Would it be here? Yeah, there we go. I want my extra line here. So if I needed to throw in another row here, I could certainly do that. I think I went in and got rid of stuff that maybe I shouldn't have. And now I've got gotten rid of some of those extra rows. Now I got to go back in and fix it. So this is the way that I can do that. And then I can add another row and throw in whatever new information that I need there. I might, in fact, after the tab control, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that again. Now, after that tab control, you know what? I might want to keep that extra line there just to separate the tab. I'm not sure, but we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Now let's talk about the sections, and the sections that we have built here is basically the accordion and accordion content control. And we can do this a couple of different ways. So for example, I can just go ahead and let's throw in a row here, and let's throw in a column. And then inside this column, I can go ahead and throw in the accordion control. And what the accordion control is going to do by default is give me two accordion tabs. And when I click each one of these accordion tabs, it's going to open up the section below it. So this is kind of the accordion tab basically is kind of a section for Bootstrap. Now, let's say I don't want to have both of these tabs here. Well, I am going to need to go into my source control. And I am going to need to scroll way down here to the bottom. And I've got my extra card header and card body here. And let me be sure that I'm only grabbing one. Div class card body, class collapse. I think that's what I want right there. So I want those two. And I want to delete those. And then I go back to my source. And nope, it's still there. Well, fine. I'll just backspace my way through that. Oh, I have backspaced my way through something. I've done something terribly, terribly wrong. Let's try that. I wasn't sure I could backspace my way through this here, but let's go back and let's see if I can. Don't want to backspace that, but I do want to backspace that. So maybe going back in and getting rid of that wasn't the best idea. Now I've got card header. All right. Okay, so now I think I have one accordion tab. It is kind of tedious to do this. Now, I had forgotten that if I just do the accordion content, it throws in one accordion. Let me refresh. There we go. There's my accordion tab. I don't have any content in it yet. So actually, you know what? Let me just restart this whole thing. I just want to get rid of this whole thing here. Fine. Let's go back to status quo ante. We'll go with row. Then we'll go with column. And then in column, oh, I probably did that wrong. Nope, I guess we have to do accordion. I guess I have to have the accordion, and then I have to add the accordion content. So let me go back to source. I want to get rid of accordion tab too. Control F. accordion tab 2. All right, so div class card, card header, card body. So div class card, card header, H2 doesn't count. Div class card body, that's the end of card body. That's the end of the div tag. I'm not sure I counted right. Do I leave that last div tab, or the last two div tabs? Because I got a div start, a div start, a div end, a div start, and a div. So div, div, div end. So that ends. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So this is where it gets real tricky doing this stuff. I'm trying to count. Okay, so there's 2 div tags. All right, this is an H2 tag. Now I'm down to 1 div tag. Here's my second div tag. Here's my third div tag. And I think I need to take that. I think that is what does it. Let's cross our fingers. I'm going to X our way out of that. I'm going to go back to source, and I have an accordion, but I have done something wrong. So see, this gets kind of tedious to do. So there's my card body. So why isn't my card body showing up in there? Let me just throw some space in there just to see where we are. It should be accordion tab 1. So again, we're going to scroll down. We're looking for accordion tab 1. So once again, okay, there is accordion tab 1. So there's my card header. And there's my card body. All right, not sure what I did. See, this is where we can go and play around for a long, long time trying to get this right. So drop my column in there. And you know what? We'll drop the accordion. And we'll go to accordion tab. Remove div. Remove div. I have remove div, remove div, remove div. I'm sorry, I'm just removing all of these. Oh, I didn't want to remove that div. Okay, so now I've just got these 2 H2s left here. And those I can delete. I've deleted way too much. As you can tell, this can get a little tricky to do. This is why the Bootstrap controls are not, strictly speaking, my favorite controls to use in Process Director, because if you're trying to cowboy your way through it, the way I'm trying to cowboy my way through it, you are going to get yourself in trouble, as you can see. So fine, we're just going to move ahead. And we'll throw in a card. Actually, that's not the one I want to throw in. Just want to throw in a card. So a card is like a section, but it is a non-hidable section. And it contains a card image, a card title, and then your card text or your card body. So if you notice right here, there's this image control. It's a broken image control. We don't have an image for it. So we need to create an image for it. So what we're going to do is we are going to upload an image, and we're going to go to choose file, and we'll go to BP Logix logos. Let me find that little square BP Logix logo. We'll send it to the server. I'm going to set the width to, let's set it to 64. Let's make it a little bigger there. And now I've got my image set at 64. And there you can see it now appearing right there. And then on my card title, this is the card title. And for the card text, well, we're not going to have text because we can go ahead and drop in a form row in there. And inside the form row, we can drop in a couple of form groups. And then inside each form group, we can just drop in a form control. All right, so let's go back in here. I do actually want to have that accordion control. So let's add a row. And then inside that row, let's add a column. And I'm going to try to remember how I did this. So I just drop in accordion, and it drops in 2 accordion tabs. So that's accordion tab 1 and accordion tab 2. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to save and close this for a second. I have to go back to my other form because I have to reconstruct how I did this to make this work. So let's hit OK here. And let's go back to the responsive layout control form. Oh, I left both in there. Okay, fine. I just left them both in there. So that's what I did, I guess. I just left both accordion tabs inside there. So I didn't try to change them at all. What time is it? It's 11:08. We got plenty of time. Well, we probably have more time than you have patience watching me do this. So there we go. There's my accordion tab body. So here, once again, and basically you're just like at this point, we're doing the same thing over and over and over. We're just throwing in form rows and form groups. And then once we have our form groups, dropping our labels and form controls in those form groups. And I know that if I could remember the HTML well enough, I know I could go here and figure out what part I needed to delete off of this. Because I've got my card, the card has its control in it. So there's my form group, there's my card body, and What I don't know is where my card div ends, although I think it's there. I think it's there. Or do I need to keep an extra div there? See, I don't remember. This is where it gets tricky. Let's just try it. Let's just try pulling that. I hit Control X so I could save it. And we'll go back to our source. All right, let's save it. Oh, I have messed up something. Let's refresh it. Okay, well, my accordion tab is there, but I'm missing a div somewhere else. So I think I took out one too many div tags. And if that fixes it, I'm just going to be, that did not fix it. That has made it worse. You know what? We're just going to discard the changes and close the form and go back in. And I have done something horrible, horrible, horrible here. So once again, I'm going to right click and we're just going to, oops, we're just going to start removing. Well, those are controls. So I can delete those. And we'll just start removing these divs. That's not a div specifically. That is an H2. It does help if you know remove div, delete that, and remove div. So I guess we're just going to have to, I guess I'm not going to be able to tell you how to get rid of that second div tag. So you're just going to have to forgive me. I can't figure it out and try to present at the same time. It does give you a clue that this is not the easiest method for building forms. Although there are lots of cool things that you can do, it is kind of tedious. I I'm not sure you're ever going to use the accordion really, but if you want to, and you know Bootstrap well enough, and I have a surface knowledge of Bootstrap and the responsive layout controls, but I don't use them. And if I were to use them, I probably wouldn't use the card or the accordion. What I would use and would use a lot would be the tab controls because A, these tab controls are a lot easier to program and they look much better in the form in the design view than the process director tab controls do. And I'm not limited in the number of tabs I can have. The tab strip control limits you to, what is it, 7 tabs? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's either 7 or 8 tabs, which is fine for most purposes, but it might not be enough for all purposes. So for this control, if I just need some more tabs, I just add the tab content. And so I can have the tabs that I want. And of course, all of these are editable right in the UI. So they're kind of easier to use. Again, once you get everything set up in Process Director in the design view, the last thing that you're going to want to do is go through and you're going to want to get rid of any extra rows that you have. Oops, backspace the wrong thing. And got that one more row. that I want to backspace out of. And there we go. Now I've got a form that is more or less what I want. Apologies for the accordion thing, but uh, I'll leave that to you for homework to figure out how to make accordion controls work if you want to do that. But the tab controls in this, I really like. And you can provide a tabbed interface. What I don't like about the tab controls is that in Bootstrap, the tab controls are always horizontally aligned. In Process Director, we can align them vertically. In fact, for most of the forms that we make, we always set our tabs to vertical. That way our tabs are always at the top, they're vertical, and you can just sort of click on them from top to bottom. Also, because a lot of times when you're using tab forms, you want to go through the tabs in specific order. So creating them top to bottom like that kind of helps with it. Also, if I have the tabs in vertical array, then all of my content starts off at the top and I see all of my tabs. I generally don't have to do a lot of horizontal or vertical scrolling up and down to see all of the content in the tabs. So I'll leave it up to you. So what you prefer in terms of tabs. What you should note is that if I go to tab 1, notice how I've got this space down here between tab 1 and these controls and the card that I created. If I go to tab 2, same thing. If I go to tab 3, okay, wait a second. This tells me I've got something going on tab 2 and tab 1. So when I'm using the tabs, okay, there we go. There's tab 1. Well, I've got that extra space there on tab 1. Second tab, yeah, I've got that extra space there on my second tab. Tab 3 does not have that extra space. So now when I save this and refresh my form, you can see that that space now disappears between tab 1, tab 2, and well, there's still a little extra space there on tab 3. What do I have in there that I shouldn't have? Let's try that. Let's save. So as you can see, trying to get everything lined up does require a little extra effort for making that. There we go. That got rid of it. So now tabbing. Of course, in tab 4 content, I don't have any control, so I don't have any of that padding or spacing. So as you can see, my card control jumps up a little bit on the bottom when I switch to tab 4. So if I had multiple rows in each of these tabs, this bottom part of my form would always be jumping up and down and up and down. That's just sort of part and parcel of using tabs because they are all dynamic controls. But those are the basics of using the responsive layout controls. I don't think there's anything more complicated that we need to talk about. It is tedious to use, admittedly. It is a non-BP-Logix framework that we have kind of brought in and made to work, but it's going to take extra effort on your part to design forms and to find things like that extra space right there that I don't want, that I'm going to have to backspace out of to get everything to work. And of course, once everything is all jammed together, everything will be fine and your form will look great and it'll automatically be responsive and do all of the responsive things that you want it to do. In fact, what I didn't show you, and let's go back and do that because I forgot as far as the tabs go. So our tabs, whenever our form gets smaller, our tabs go to row level tabs. The other reason why we like to use vertical tabs is that I don't have to worry about this 2-row tab thing, which I think at smaller screen sizes does get a little bit ugly. But I do have to admit, doing tabs in Bootstrap, tabbed forms in Bootstrap is easier and more convenient than doing it in Process Director, if for no other reason than because in the design view, you can see what your tabs are doing as you switch between them, and you can just sort of edit them live, tab by tab. And I really, really like that. I wish our tab controls worked that way, but they don't. But that is a really cool thing to do. So let me go back and look at the responsive layout control that I have here, a form that I have here, to see if there's anything else I want to yes, one more thing that I want to cover. And this is the one difference that we have to keep in mind. So I'm glad I looked back over there. Let's talk about arrays, because arrays are pretty common. So I need to come way down here, and I need to insert another row. And what we're going to do here is we're going to insert a form row instead of a row. So we're just going to go ahead and insert a form row. And inside that form row, we're going to insert a form group. And now we're going to build an array. So inside the form group, we're now going to throw in our table. So we'll go with 3 rows, 3 columns. Actually, we only need 2 rows. And let's give ourselves 3 columns here. Not 34, 3. And we'll hit OK. So now I've got a table. And obviously, wait, I do need to do one thing. Let's go to my table properties. I forgot to do one important thing. First row for my headers. So now my first row is a header row. And this is where I drop in my array column controls. I technically need those quotation marks, but I've already put them in here, so I guess we use them. Normally, what I would do at this point is I would not type in my array column system variable or control tag like this. Normally, I would stick it inside system variable control, but in this case, I'm just going to slap it on there in the interest of time. And then, of course, I need to create my array. So we'll go with my array start, and this is called array start 24, which I'm going to copy because I will need that in a minute. And then here, we'll add an input control. Then we'll go into this column, add an input control. Then we'll go here, add another input control. And after that input control, we will add our array end. You know what? I do want that extra row. I'll tell you why I want that extra row. Normally, if I was on a regular form, I would drop my add row to array just right below the array table. I wouldn't feel any particular need to make it part of the table structure. I do feel a particular need to do it whenever I am inside a Bootstrap form. I want to be able to know that where I place that button is where it's going to go. Now, the trouble with Bootstrap here is that I'm inside a form group, and it really only wants to have one control and one label inside the form group. So I am kind of cheating here. I want to be sure that I know what the placement of this add row to array button is going to be. So inside the Bootstrap form, I'm going to add this extra row to my table. And that is where I am going to add my add row to array. Now I know that it's always going to appear here. And then of course, I'm just going to go ahead and do my regular array thing where I'm just going to click on my array control and select it. And oh, it won't let me go anywhere until I paste array start 24 in there. Now I can select my, oops, not my input control. Need to select my array control, and I will go in and set its default value as a number to 1 so that I have one blank row of the array when the form kicks off. And I've got this extra row down here. I want to backspace out of that. I've got this extra row in the container, which I also want to backspace out of. And now that I have done, everything should look nice. We'll hit Control S, and there is my form. And we've refreshed. So now I can refresh my form. And there we go. There's column 1, column 2, column 3, and my add row button adds my rows to my array in the table and keeps my add row button exactly where it is supposed to be. So you'll work with arrays a little bit differently, but as long as you have a form row and a form group, you can create your table inside the form group. Remember, for Bootstrap forms, your best results are probably going to come from throwing your add row control into the bottom row of the table rather than the way I always do it. I just throw it below the table. I know that in a regular process director form, it's going to appear in that expected location. Don't always know that in Bootstrap, so it's always wise just to basically hard code the placement inside the table. I would also say that if you're going to be using the responsive layout controls, the array is the only time in which you will use a table to determine the layout of controls. The array control is special. We expect data to be in a tabular format, even for data entry. So we want to use the table because that is the structure of our data. That is a valid use of a table for formatting the location and the layout of form controls. In a Bootstrap form, it is the only acceptable way of laying out form controls, and array controls are the only time that you will use it. All other controls, you are going to want to use the standard containers that are built into Bootstrap. It is not a great idea to try to create some sort of hybrid form where I'm going to use tables for my form layout in some area, and then I'm going to use Bootstrap in other areas. We would not recommend that you do that. Our recommendation is that when you go the Bootstrap way, that you stay with form rows and form groups. Now, I was doing a lot of stuff here, and I was trying to edit the accordion control, and I had trouble doing it. It would take me a while to sit and troubleshoot exactly what to edit on that accordion control. It'd probably take me, 10, 15 minutes just sitting by myself working through it. You'll probably have to do the same thing if you want to do that. And it may have given you the impression that this is harder. Well, if your impression is that it's harder than it needs to be, you're probably right. If your impression is it's as hard as I made it look, then you're probably wrong. I was trying to do some extra experimentation, and I had thought that on my original responsive layout form that I had edited that accordion group. I hadn't. I had just kept both accordions in there. There's questions. How would I do conditional sum of array? like add a drop down in the last column and some previous column values, depending on what you chose, depending on, okay, that is not really, yeah, that's not really a question that I can answer here in this particular topic. It's not really relevant to the topic. So I don't want to get into the, I apologize, but I can't really get into sort of the specifics of arrays and how to configure arrays. That's not really the point of this webinar. I really would prefer to keep the focus on using the Bootstrap controls themselves. As I was saying, I made it look hard. That's because I was trying to do some stuff that I probably just should not have mentioned. But as always, whenever you're, doing this live and you're cowboying your way through it, you think, well, I'm a smart guy. I'm smart. I can do stuff, not like everybody says. And yeah, I got myself into a little bit of a hole here. I don't want that to scare you. The reason that I don't want it to scare you is because for the most part, the only thing you really have to know how to do are throw in the form rows and the form groups. And you can have different number of form groups on different rows. Like, here, I've got four form controls. And on this one, I have 2. And then down here, I have 3. And then I have 2. And then on this tab, I only have 1. You are not constrained the way that you are whenever you're using a regular process director form and you're trying to use a table. When you throw that table on there, that table is more or less what it is. It's, 4 columns and 6 rows. That's what it is. Yes, you can go in and merge columns, but it's not as flexible as the form row form group. As long as you realize that 95% of what you're going to do is going to be dropping in a form row and then however many form groups you want on each row, then you're going to go down one row and drop in another form row and throw in your form controls there. You're pretty good to go. I mean, it's not that hard to set up. If you want to throw in a section, you certainly can, and just throw in a form row and a form group in that section to build your form that way. If you want to use a tabbed form, again, all you do is go to your tab, change whatever your tab text is. So now it says tab text instead of tab 5, and then just go into your tab content. And once again, responsive layout, form row, and then drop in a form group. And then however many form groups you want, a label, a control, and move on. Once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. And it does give you the ability to do some pretty cool things with your forms. Also, because you're using Bootstrap, it already controls your responsiveness. So that the whole responsiveness thing and responsiveness and accessibility is already taken care of. Plus, it does all of your control styling. So all of your control styles match on all of your forms that use Bootstrap. They're always the same. So that relieves you from having to worry about what weird styling might crop up on different forms because of what some developer did. It's not super hard to learn, and it's not super hard to use. It is tedious. I will grant you that. But technically, it's not all that hard once you get into your mind that I'm actually just building a table. My container is the outer table, and then my form row is the row of controls, and my form group is the little group of control and label that I would normally use for accessibility anyway. And it's going to control, I don't have to do anything special. Like if I'm using a table and I throw in a label in a table cell, the first thing I have to do is, hit like Control Shift, because I don't want to add a paragraph character, but I want my control to be on the line below the label, and I don't want to have too much space. You don't have to worry about any of that whenever you're using Bootstrap. You simply drop in your label, you hit your left arrow key, and then you drop in your control. Bootstrap is going to control the positioning of both your label and your control inside the form group. That's what its whole purpose is. And that's why you have a separate form group rather than a column control. The form group is a column control that also automatically controls the display and control location and placement of the form controls that you place into it. So while it is kind of tedious to have to go through and to remember, oh, I've got this extra line down there, I got to backspace my way out of that. Do I have an extra line anywhere else? Why is, when I turn on my form, which apparently I have once again closed, why do I have this extra vertical space in my form? And then you kind of have to go back into your design view and, say, okay, well, what do I have here? Oh, that's a tab control. I got to have that space because I have all these other tabs there. So you have to pay a lot more attention to sort of design and a lot more attention to line spacing. But other than that, there's nothing that's super difficult for you to do. Again, all you have to do to turn this on is change your system var for the BP include boots or the F include bootstrap system variable. Once that's turned on, the responsive layout controls will appear. Once you have them, you can use them to begin creating your forms to your heart's content. Well, that's all I have for you today. I think you can see why this is one of my least favorite webinars to do, because it is kind of tedious to run through, and it's also hard to try to talk and to do stuff at the same time because it is so picky. It's easier whenever you're just sitting all by yourself in your silent room. So you'll probably find it a lot easier whenever you're actually building things with it than what I demonstrated here. But in any event, it's 11:36. I will give you the balance of your day. I hope you have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, so long.